I think it is imperative that we take a look at where we, as Americans, are, especially those of us who feel that justice is not being served. As a backdrop, many of us have been infuriated at the investigations by the FBI of Hillary Clinton on many, many fronts. On Uranium One, on the Clinton Foundation, on Benghazi, on the email scandal, on the fundamental lies before Congress, on the failure to protect confidential documents. On all those fronts, they have passed on even looking into it. And when you look at the studies that were undertaken, the alleged studies that were undertaken in the Comey regime as director, nothing was being done. Nothing was being done. And as a matter of fact, they chose not to even research it. They chose not to ask anybody the questions. And so when Trump was elected, the FBI kicked it into high gear to try to find a way to undo him, and went as far with Rod Rosenstein saying that he would wear a wire, or contemplated wearing a wire, in the presence of Donald Trump so he could catch him saying something idiotic and perhaps trigger the 25th Amendment, wherein cabinet members would vote that Trump was incompetent to serve. But parallel to that, of course, is the whole FISA and Fisk matter, the court matter where they obtained, with Carter Page and others, the capacity to investigate Trump on a whole variety of ranges, and then to go with Rod Rosenstein to put Mueller in and spend 2 years fiddling, getting technical, nothing but technical crimes and tax evasion matters against guys that were in the periphery of the problem. And yet Hillary skates. And so part of the problem that many of us have is that if Trump was doing well, was representing us, then we wanted him to be treated fairly, and we wanted Hillary Clinton to be treated fairly too, but we have seen hundreds of situations, all the way down to ones like Seth Rich, where we say there's more here, and nobody does anything about it. And so we have this two-tiered criminal system, as it seems. In the most recent case, we have, and why I have done this the way I have, is to say that we now have William Barr. William Barr replaced Jeff Sessions, and people in the Q community said, well, trust Sessions because Q did, even though Sessions ultimately didn't do anything, unless you want to say appointing Hoover, who still hasn't done anything, or at least hasn't apparently done anything, was his number one task. So we replaced Jeff Sessions, who went out like a lamb, and we brought in William Barr. And now people are saying, well, we got to trust Barr. In my most recent video, I showed that Barr and Abrams and Ray and, of course, John Bolton are dark and dirty, and they've been that way forever. So I am going to spend some time showing you pieces of stuff that I looked at. Specifically, I'm going to give you links, and I'm going to take a look at what it is that I looked at to see, because the first suspicion I got to was William Barr is a compatriot of George H.W. Bush. And if you followed this channel, and over 1 million people have looked at my report on H.W. Bush, then you know that I think he is as dirty as any human being has been, perhaps since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and perhaps ever. He is the dirtiest of all. And so what does William Barr have to do with it? I'm going to have you take a look at a couple of things. First of all, that William Barr started out as a covert CIA operative, and that he was probably a covert CIA operative fresh out of high school, and that he has been basically CIA ever since. I'm going to say to you, as they say about some in the military, once CIA, always CIA, and you can pay attention to Robert David Steele on the same account. But why did Trump pick William Barr? Can he be the guy that cleans the swamp? What is it that William Barr has going for him that would make us think that he is going to? And why initially was the mainstream media so soft and patsy on him that nothing was going about? So I'm going to take a look at a whole variety of things and put them on the table, both from an outfit called the Millennium Report, and then also from Patriot or Traitor, in which they say William Pelham Barr is a traitor, and that he is a treasonous American attorney who is the current Attorney General. So I'm going to let you make the call, right? I'll give you some information and let you make the call. So he turned in as a CIA operative as early as the 1970s. And he was linked to them, as many others are. One of the comments that is made about Barr is that, like many other AGs, which he is now, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, Michael Mukasey, Alberto Gonzalez, John Ashcroft, Janet Reno, Dick Thornburg, and Ed Meese, they all were cover-up guys. They were fixers. They were guys that took care of the problems of the president and made the legal problems of the president go away, real or imagined, past, present, or as part of the administration. But this guy says that Barr is a sordid case, and that he served as an insider as the AG for H.W. Bush from 91 to 93. He wreaked havoc, flaunted the rule of law, proved himself to be one of the CIA deep state's greatest and most ruthless champions and protectors. He was a full-time CIA operative. He was recruited by Langley out of high school starting in 1971. He was assigned to the China Directorate and got his master's in China Studies. George H.W. Bush was the emissary, not the ambassador, but the emissary, I think is what they call him, the liaison to China before we recognized mainland China as a nation and elevated it to the status of an ambassadorship. So when H.W. Bush became CIA director in 76, and that's where H.W. Bush cornered the market on the darkness, and that is true for everybody that's in the CIA at the highest levels and everybody that's linked to H.W. Bush. I have the idea that H.W. Bush took Richard Nixon out in part because that gave him control of what Richard Nixon was doing out of Vietnam and the drugs and the rest of the stuff that was there. So Barr joined the CIA's legal office at the time that H.W. Bush came in and became part of Bush's inner circle. Worked alongside of his CIA enforcers, Theodore Ted Shackley, Felix Rodriguez, Thomas Kleins, and others, several of whom were likely involved in the Bay of Pigs, John F. Kennedy assassination, and numerous Southeast Asian operations, from the Phoenix program to the Golden Triangle narco-trafficking. And that, I believe that's where H.W. Bush became the drug traffic lord extraordinaire, the CIA drug trafficking boss. So Barr joined H.W. Bush's legal intelligence team during his vice presidency under Ronald Reagan, rose from assistant attorney general to chief legal counsel, and then to attorney general in the middle of H.W. Bush's term of office. I'm going to give you this stuff. I'm going to throw this on the screen so that you can see it as we go. In his Attorney General confirmation, Barr vowed to attack criminal organizations, drug smugglers, and money launderers. It was all hot air. As AG, Barr would preserve, protect, cover up, and nurture the apparatus that he helped create and use the Justice Department power to escape punishment. Now that's what this guy said. So I'm going to let you, I'll report, you decide, right? So he Barr stonewalled and stopped investigations into all of the Bush, Clinton, and CIA crimes, including BCCI, which were financial crimes, and BNL, CIA drug banking, and the money laundering that BCCI and BNL did for the drug trafficking, the theft of INSLAW Promise software, which is used by the intelligence community, and all the crimes committed by state crimes committed by Bush. He provided legal cover for Bush's illegal foreign policy and war crimes. Barr left Washington and then went into the rotating door like everybody else, like James Comey, who made $10-20 million while he was interim and out of government. Into the corporate world went Barr. In 2007, he was counsel for the politically connected international law firm of Kirkland and Ellis. And there were also Ken Starr, John Brushface Bolton, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and numerous Trump administration attorneys that, and as I reported to you before, the Kirkland and Ellis clients include sex trafficker, pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and which they got off with Elliott Abrams, who also is in the Trump administration, Elliott Abrams was the district attorney in Florida at the time and gave Jeffrey Epstein the biggest sweetheart deal of any criminal defendant I have ever heard of. I mean, he made his prosecution and conviction and plea out on charges makes Martha Stewart look like a lifer. So, and then they also represent Mitt Willard Mittens Romney, Bain Capital, which is another theft organization that was used to decimate various kinds of companies and give Willie money to play games as a government employee. The Iran-Contra thing was one of the biggest deals, and Barr, according to this thing, had a central role working for George H.W. Bush. You know, Reagan took the rap for Iran-Contra, and Reagan ended up having to apologize, but the truth of the matter was that H.W. Bush was running behind the scenes and doing all the nasty, dirty stuff, including Iran-Contra. Reagan had to man up and say, you know, I'm the president, I'm responsible, but it was his dirty little boy, H.W. Bush, that was foisted on him as vice president that did the dirty work. So the Iran-Contra is a reference to illegal arms sales to Iran in exchange for American hostages in Lebanon and arms to the Contra freedom fighters in Nicaragua. They said, all right, well, the Congress won't let us give money or arms or aid to the Contras, and we are not supposed to in Nicaragua, and we're not supposed to do anything with Iran. We're not supposed to pay off the hostages there. So Reagan and Bush, not Reagan, but Bush, and Ollie North and the rest of the guys, including William Barr, did it in the background. And the Mena, Arkansas thing, if you haven't seen the movie about Barry Seal, you should take a look at it. What they left out of the movie was there's nothing in there about Bill Clinton or H.W. Bush skimming off the top of all of that drug money. It makes it look like Barry Seal's the only guy that was in on it, but that just ain't true. Barry Seals was just the handler, just the transporter and handler. So according to some of these guys, the Iran-Contra itself is a euphemism for the outrageous fraud perpetrated by government criminals for profit and control. And this is at the very heart of everything that's wrong with this country. Everything that has to do at the very heart of the deep state is that the deep state, through the CIA, figured out how to make money and to engage in criminal enterprises as part of the CIA and the rest of the intelligence group, to have black money, to have dark money, so that they could do anything that they want to, including buying off politicians, overthrowing governments, engaging in incursions and military matters all over the world, backing outfits like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and the rest of these guys, and playing games with all of them to alternately say you're a good guy, you're a bad guy, provided we get our money. So the Operation Insiders and whistleblowers placed George H.W. Bush as one of its top architects of the dirty, nasty stuff that the CIA and the dark world that operates under and with the CIA, outside of the purview of Congress, outside the purview of United States citizens, and of course outside of the purview of the mainstream media, okay? So the Bay of Pigs, Oliver North, Ted Shackley, all the rest of these guys are in on it. And there is, what I thought about the Iran-Contra was that there were a few $1 million that passed from one side to the other to pacify the Iranians, and there was a few piles of guns that went to the Nicaraguan Contras. But what these guys have pointed out is that once they got their handles on this and started playing with drugs from Central and South America, and they exchanged those big time for guns and for sex trafficking and pedophilia and for a whole variety of other things, money laundering, that it became a multi-billion-dollar operation. And I'm going to say to you that George H.W. Bush was the kingpin of it. He was the godfather. I don't know why he didn't have something in his bottom lip like Marlon Brando so that he could look like the godfather, but he's the dirty boy. So there is a Webster Tarpley has an unauthorized biography of George H.W. Bush in which he outlines a whole bunch of this stuff, and there are indications here that not only did Bush run Iran-Contra, but much of the Reagan presidency, which most of us have come to know. Bush was functioning as the co-president. George was involved in all of the national security stuff because of his special background as CIA director. All the budget working groups, he was there, the economic working groups, the cabinet meetings, he is included in almost all the meetings. But you have to recognize that in addition to that, George H.W. Bush had effectively overtaken the presidency when Hinckley shot, or allegedly shot, Ronald Reagan, which basically put a shot across the bow into the chest of Ronald Reagan that said, if you screw with me, you might not live through this presidency. If you just let me run it, Ronald, perhaps you'll live to be an old man. And that's basically what they did. So I'm going to give you the Bush-Clinton crime family flowchart, and that was put together by Stu Webb, and I'll post it as part of the process. And if you take a look at it, I tried to make it as big and clear as possible. You'll see that the Clintons, Hillary and Bill, are both deep and center stage onto all of it. That Ollie North and of course all the rest of these guys, the Arkansas stuff, the Mena, Arkansas, the drugs and everything else, a lot of the oil cartels are all running and run under the thumb of H.W. Bush, and William Barr is at the core of it. There is a piece in here, and I pointed this out the other day, a guy that wrote a book called Drugging America, a Trojan Horse, that Rodney Stick. I posted that, I'll post it again. Stick said Terry Reed was one of the operatives and a whistleblower in the Mena, Arkansas matter. And he was a frequent telephone contact with a guy named Robert Johnson. That's who he knew him. He knew him as Robert Johnson. And Johnson, Robert Johnson, alias Robert Johnson, directed the drug trafficking and drug money laundering, the training in Arkansas of Contra pilots and fighters, and authorized Reed to set up the CIA proprietary in Mexico. At a later date, Reed learned that Robert Johnson, alias Robert Johnson, was actually William Barr, the guy that was appointed by George H.W. Bush to be the Attorney General for the United States. So Reed's CIA contact, William Barr, known at the time as alias Robert Johnson, told Reed that Attorney General Edwin Meese had appointed Michael Fitzhugh to be the U.S. Attorney in western Arkansas, the Mena, Arkansas area, and that he would stonewall any investigation into Mena drug-related activities. This obstruction of justice by the Justice Department officials did occur. So William Barr then, who became the Attorney General, had already worked for George H.W. Bush as his dark management boy in the CIA operations of drug trafficking and money laundering, etc., and the smuggling of drugs into the United States. So we had, under Nixon, a war on drugs, right? Well, the war on drugs was really not a war on drugs. Everything that we're told is a lie, and one of the many lies was we have this war on drugs. It's like the war on terror. No, the war on drugs was we're conducting a war on anybody who is competing with us or is going to out us in our drug trafficking into the United States, because that's one of our major money operations, and we will take out guys, and I will go through this a little later, anybody that threatens us, like Manuel Noriega from Panama. And Barr was in on all of that stuff. So that the mafia groups working with the CIA basically melded into the CIA and became underlings and distributors under the CIA. And one of the reasons why the mafia doesn't run everything anymore, we don't hear about them, is because the CIA is doing it. That's why. Because the CIA is at the corner of it. Because there was a stealing of over $100 million in drug money in routes from Panama to Colorado, Ohio, and Arkansas, and this theft drained the operation known as the Enterprise. The first call was made by the CIA agent Joseph Fernandez to Oliver North, and they went on to say that William Barr was there to clean it up and to meet with the guys, including Bill Clinton, to take care of the money that was getting siphoned off of the CIA operation run by George H.W. Bush, the dirty boy. So I'm not going to get into the money laundering and the rest of that, but William Barr was heading a drive in Virginia to turn prisons into slave labor camps, and there's a picture showing him together with, well, guess what? Joe Creepy Biden. So these guys have been in on this together for 30 years. That's 28 years ago, along with Strom Thurmond and Senator Patrick Leahy. So, Leahy's from Vermont, right? So according to Rodney Stick, before William Barr came to the Justice Department, he was an attorney with the Washington firm of Shaw, Pittman, Potts, and Trowbridge, and this firm represented BCCI, which was the money laundering firm for the CIA and for H.W. Bush. So he was already a CIA operative, and he became an attorney to protect the banking and financial guys that were drug laundering. Okay, I'm going to skip the Inslaw and promise I am not competent to talk about it. And then there are the Iran-Contra pardons, And of course, H.W. Bush, at the end of his presidency, pardoned a bunch of guys, co-conspirators, Caspar Weinberger, his insider Elliott Abrams, who is now the intra-American peace counselor ambassador in the Secretary of State's office, who was pardoned for a $50 fine and 2-year probation. With the stroke of a pen, Bush gleefully set free 6 of his Iran-Contra criminal flunkies and effectively decapitated Special Prosecutor Lawrence Walsh's 6-year-long Iran-Contra matter. The questions then that this guy has are, why is William Barr the antithesis of a patriot and the swampiest of swamp monsters, now being inserted into the middle of what is supposed to be a white hat anti-corruption operation? The move is baffling. And I will say to you, my thumbnail on the outside said, William Barr is the key. William Barr, those of you who want 80,000 indictments to be prosecuted, the Hillary and Holter and Obama and Loretta Lynch and Strzok and Page and Comey and dozens of others to be prosecuted, the person that has his thumb on those prosecutions is William Barr. And William Barr has said that he doesn't think that Hillary Clinton should go to jail, that maybe she should be looked into, but not go to jail. The questions are, is it significant or coincidental that Barr pick came up shortly after the death of George H.W. Bush? Is it? Is that what the little card that was passed around said? Did it say that Trump or Pence or somebody else was going to take over the H.W. Bush crime family operation? Is that what it said? It could have. And that would have been as shocking as that they were going to be prosecuted, because it meant that their money tree wasn't going to be there anymore. Does Trump know that Barr was actually Robert Johnson, a deep state swamp rat, most loyal to the operators and protectors of the deep state, the very core, the deepest part of the deep state? Does he know that? What role could Trump possibly envision for Barr? Will Barr go after Bill and Hillary Clinton, Jeb and George W. Bush, with whom Barr managed numerous Iran-Contra operations? Will he go after Robert Mueller and James Comey? Robert Mueller is his good buddy. James Comey is a guy he's worked with. And dozens of members of Congress who were so deeply connected to the enterprise. Why would Barr go against everything he helped create? This isn't just a guy, Robert Mueller, that ran the uranium to Russia so that they could take a look at it, which incidentally is just one of his many operations as well. Is Trump being a genius, or is he a dupe and or a sellout? Have Trump and his forces turned or leveraged Barr? Is it even possible to control someone like him, once CIA, always CIA? Imagine the spectacle of the pending confirmation hearings, which of course have already happened, and nobody threw any of these big assaults at William Barr, right? Nobody went directly at him. Iran-Contra, the whole rest of the stuff. What did H.W. Bush do? Everybody skipped that. Everybody skipped that. So, while the mainstream media has latched onto quotes in which Barr said he supports some investigations into the Clintons, he also insists, this is William Barr now, also insists that throwing Hillary Clinton in jail is inappropriate. What do you expect to happen? Do you think he's going to reverse himself? And do you think that he is going to learn something new that will cause him to change his mind? Maybe, maybe not. Does the nomination of Barr suggest that President Trump also does not want to fully, quote, drain the swamp? Is his goal merely to co-opt the New World Order and co-opt the Bush Republican apparatus? And I would go deeper and say the Bush crime family, the Bush-Clinton crime family apparatus. And by the way, some people have gone to the trouble of saying, well, you must really be a liberal and you're actually in favor of Obama and Clinton and the rest of them. No, I'd like to see them all hang. Just that I have gathered a certain amount of skepticism about the Republicans, which doesn't make me a Democrat, okay? We have to take a look that there's a coin, and the coin has two sides. And one says R and one says D. And when you flip it, you always get the same amount. It doesn't matter. So, no, I am not someone who has flipped allegiances or was actually always functioning on one side or the other and was surreptitiously really a liberal playing the game so I could flip. No, what I did was I have grown very, very skeptical that anything positive is going to happen, and I think Barr is the pivotal, the keystone to the whole process. If Barr's good, we may be good. If Barr's bad, it may be really bad. And it may indicate that there are more bad things that are there than even we anticipate. So is it too much to expect the masses who remain uninformed and controlled by propaganda to understand the significance and danger posed by the reappearance of Barr? I think that's a perfectly valid question. If in fact you can't trust Barr, and Huber and Horowitz and the rest of these guys are all, and Ray are all part and under William Barr. He's the guy running the show. Some Trump optimists are stretching, trying to convince themselves that Trump is using the Barr nomination to troll. I see this on my comments. And to point attention back to the Bush history, thus forcing public to research, recoil, and awaken to the truth. Do you think so? I mean, I'm trying to do that. Do you think anybody else is going to do it? Do you think the mainstream media is going to turn on John Kerry and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and the Mueller and Comey and everybody else, including really going after Barr? Do you think so? That's a good question, right? So some would also like to believe that Trump is playing 4D chess, that he is playing a game of deception, that he's the chess player. He is merely keeping his enemies close, and I see that on there's always at least a couple comments in my channel saying, well, he keeps his friends close and his enemies closer. Well, you got to have friends, folks. You can't get anything done if you crawl into a pit of cobras. You can't expect to get a lot of positive stuff done. The best thing that can happen to you is you're not bitten. That's the best. Right? It doesn't mean you're going to do anything positive for yourself or anybody else. So the question then is he co-opting and levering these compromised figures to his personal bidding? So if this works, you got a deep state dark guy that's been in and out of the CIA since 1971 and who has worked with H.W. Bush since before 76. Do you think he's flipped, and is he going to do the right thing? And so what has happened in the FBI? What has happened in the DOJ? What has happened to all the indictments? What has happened to the prosecutions? What happened to the Clinton investigations? And are they really going to be prosecuted? And you know, some of you folks believe so. I like to look at the pudding and see what the proof is. How is it made and what are the ingredients? And William Barr is one of the big ingredients. So some argue that Barr is useful because he knows where the bodies are buried. And this guy points out is that Barr himself helped bury them, literally in many cases. I don't have any way of knowing that. I have to say, I don't know that Barr was either a murderer or an accomplice to murder, but that's what this guy says. If Trump thinks he can control or leverage someone as dangerous as Barr, then Trump is taking the biggest risk of his presidency and of his life. Maybe so. He is also placing the country and the world at risk. And the only way we're going to get this turned around, short of you and I, you and me, babe, standing up and moving ahead as citizens and saying no more, we're not going to do this anymore. The only way short of that is you just want to eat popcorn and click your mouse, is that William Barr has to be good. Because if William Barr isn't good, none of the prosecutions, none of the fairness, none of the two-state mentality that separates the elites from the commoners is ever going to happen. Okay? So the question then is it all in the crime family? The atrocities and crimes of the Bushes and Clintons are unspeakable and unimaginable in depravity and scale. Those atrocities were facilitated by William Barr. That's what this person says. Barr, a hands-on participant, is guilty. Furthermore, he poisoned and manipulated the judicial system, law enforcement, to get himself and his friends off the hook. That's what this guy says. Barr must be exposed and condemned along with the entire Bush, Clinton, Obama network, and all must be denied and removed from all positions of influence and power. Well, that's basically what I've said from the outset, and once again, it's two sides of the same coin. Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush were working together before either of them came into presidential politics, before either of them. So the question then is, when did they separate? Never. When did they not help each other out? Never. So in an unguarded moment, let me close with this, because this links George H.W. Bush with everyone and every action he has had, that he had from the 1970s, from the Bay of Pigs, actually, from 1961 or whatever it was, through the assassination of John F. Kennedy, through the CIA, through Vietnam, through the FBI, through his vice presidency, through the Hinckley assassination attempt, through his presidency, and in the shadow of and managing and operating the CIA drug and crime cartel during the Bill Clinton administration, during the George W. Bush administration, during the Obama administration, and to the day he died. And the question then is, where did that management go? If HW is gone, where did it go? In an unguarded moment to close out, in 1992, George H.W. Bush said to a reporter, Sarah McClendon, "If people ever knew what we had done, we would be chased down the street and lynched." We, folks, we. That's George H.W. Bush and lots of other people that were with him. So that's my report for today. Hopefully I have included lots of insertions. The links are directly below here in the comments, and you can take a look at my sources for this information. There are lots of books on this matter, and there is much more. I'm trying to give you the highlights of it so that you can make an honest and decent assessment, both about who these people are and what our expectations might be about what they are going to do. Thank you so much for watching. If you like that, give a thumbs up. And if you don't like it, there's a little spot right over here, I think it's over here, that says subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, you can unsubscribe. If you liked it, you can hit the subscribe button and join us. Thanks so much for watching.